let us discuss about the concept of governance. What exactly is governance and how is it different from government? Now, the idea that we had in the early part of 20th century was that government is the legitimate institution which has to provide services to citizens and which has to ensure welfare of citizens, right? So government has to be the dominant player, and in fact it should be the only player to provide services and welfare to citizens. This is the idea that we had in the early part of 20th century. Now there was a change in thinking in the middle of 20th century, that government should not be the only player and it cannot be the only player in providing services to citizens, because sometimes government may be inefficient, or sometimes the government may not have the capacity to effectively deliver services and welfare to citizens, right? So now the thinking is that you have citizen at the center, and this citizen must be taken care of, welfare must be provided, public services must be provided to citizens. So in the concept of governance, citizen is at the center. Then you have state as only one of the players in providing these services to citizens. Along with state, you also have private sector, and you also have civil society organizations like your NGOs and various self-help groups that you have in India. NGOs and self-help groups, these are some of the examples of civil society organizations. So the citizen is at the center. You have state as one of the players, private sector as one of the players, and civil society organizations as one of the players. Now all these institutions or organizations together will provide these services to citizens in an effective manner, right? So the goal is public service delivery. Now it doesn't necessarily have to be the case that government or state only must provide these services to citizens. If the private player can do it better, then let us involve private players also. If civil society organizations can do it better, then let us have their participation also. The goal must be public service delivery and effective public service delivery. If it has to be done through a private player, or if it has to be done through a civil society organization, or if it has to be done by the government directly, will depend on the sector that we are dealing with, right? I can give you some examples. Now recently in India, most of the roads that we see are constructed in public-private partnership, right? The government and the private players together form a joint venture. The government would have the responsibility of land acquisition, whereas the private players would actually lay roads and maintain roads, right? So there is clear division of responsibilities, and you have state and private players together providing service to citizen, right? It doesn't have to be the case that government only must lay roads. If the private players can do it better, then let us give that responsibility to the private player. The government will only be one of the players, right? You also have civil society organizations. If you take midday meal scheme in India, an example of implementation of the concept of governance, right? Midday meal scheme was formulated by the government. All the rules and regulations have been formulated by the government. The budget will be given by the government, but you have various NGOs like your Akshay Patra which actually implements this scheme at the ground level, right? So again, it is not necessary that only government must implement government schemes. If the NGOs or other civil society organizations can implement them better, then let us have their participation in order to effectively deliver services to citizens, right? So the core aspect of governance is institutional pluralism. You will not only have government providing services to citizens, you will also have other institutions and agencies. Institutional pluralism, other institutions and agencies also helping the government in providing effective services to citizens. Now, what is the role of state? One is either directly provide services to citizens, or to enable the private player or the civil society organization to provide these services to citizens. So the role the government is going to play is an enabler and facilitator enabler and facilitator of other institutions and agencies in order to deliver services effectively to citizens, right? So the definition of governance can be written in this way. Governance is a qualitative aspect of government administration where the focus of the state or the government would be to enable and facilitate other institutions and agencies to effectively deliver services to citizens, right? So this is the definition of governance.